Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. You know, if you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by the crazy world of personal finance, well, you are absolutely in the right place today. We're going to completely demystify a topic that honestly causes a ton of people so much unnecessary anxiety. We are digging into the essential blueprint for emergency savings. Think of this as your ultimate step-by-step guide to building a literal financial fortress around yourself and your family. We're going to break down exactly how you can take total control of your financial future and finally replace all that lingering money anxiety with absolute confidence.
Okay, let's dive right into this. How much money do you actually need in an emergency fund? Like, is it a flat $1,000? Do you need 3 months of expenses? 6 months? Maybe a full year? Well, the truth we see in the research time and time again is that an astonishing majority of Americans get this completely wrong. They either save way too little and leave themselves dangerously exposed, or, on the flip side, they hoard way more cash than they actually need. And that just means their money is slowly losing value to inflation instead of actually working for them. Getting this wrong in either direction can cost you big time, both mathematically and psychologically.
To really understand why this matters so deeply, I want you to imagine a few all-too-real scenarios. Your reliable car, the one you absolutely need to get to work every single day, suddenly requires a $2,000 transmission repair. Or you're just sitting at your desk, minding your own business, and your boss announces company-wide layoffs on a random Friday afternoon. Or maybe a massive, completely unexpected medical bill just shows up in your mailbox. None of these situations are planned, obviously, but they happen to incredibly responsible people every single day. And without an emergency fund, what happens next? Well, people are forced to turn to high-interest credit cards, they take out those predatory personal loans, or they have to face the real embarrassment and strain of borrowing money from family members. That is exactly how a minor, temporary financial setback snowballs into years of stressful, suffocating debt. So, to prevent that absolute nightmare scenario from ever happening to you, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to define your financial safety net, figure out how to find your specific target number, calculate your essential expenses, show you exactly where to store this money, and finally, we'll set up the golden rules for your fund.
All right, let's start right at the beginning with Section 1, your financial safety net. We really need to clearly define what this fund is actually meant to do for your future.
At its absolute core, an emergency fund is your financial safety net. It actively protects your future without forcing you to rely on really expensive borrowing when things inevitably go wrong. That's the fundamental mission of this money. It is absolutely not an investment meant to make you rich. No way. It is literally designed to buy you time, give you some much-needed breathing room, and provide ultimate peace of mind. It basically acts as a shock absorber between you and the unpredictable, messy nature of life, helping you completely avoid that dangerous trap of long-term debt.
Moving right along to Section 2, finding your target number. Now, I want to completely challenge that classic one-size-fits-all advice you've probably heard a million times about simply blindly saving 3 to 6 months of expenses.
What's really interesting here is how your target number completely depends on how predictable your paycheck is. It's definitely not the same for everyone. Say you're a single person with a highly stable government or corporate job where layoffs are incredibly rare. In that case, aiming for 3 months of expenses might actually be perfectly adequate to protect you. But consider the alternative. If you're self-employed, if you work on commission, or if you just have a fluctuating, unpredictable income, well, you inherently carry a lot more risk. In that case, saving 6 to 12 months of expenses is a much safer, smarter target. So the golden rule of thumb here is quite simple. The less predictable your paycheck, the larger your emergency fund must be.
And that brings us perfectly to Section 3, calculating essential expenses. Now, listen, if you are currently living paycheck to paycheck, please do not panic. We're going to break the math down right now in a really non-intimidating, step-by-step way. When calculating this target number, we are looking exclusively at the bare necessities you need to simply survive. We're talking about just 5 core things: your rent or mortgage, your basic groceries, your essential utilities, your insurance and transportation, and finally, any minimum debt payments you're required to make. And that is it. Literally, when you're figuring out your target emergency fund number, you are only adding up the cost of those specific, non-negotiable survival categories.
The absolute most crucial point to remember here is that you have to base this target on your actual expenses, not your full salary. I cannot stress this enough. This is a massive, incredibly common mistake people make all the time.
They look at their gross salary, they see this huge number, and they mistakenly think they need to save 3 months of that full amount, which of course feels totally impossible. But remember, your emergency fund isn't designed to replace every luxury purchase, or your fancy restaurant outings, or your monthly subscription boxes. It is there exclusively to cover the essentials while you recover from a major setback. So focus only on what you truly need to survive, not what you usually spend when times are great.
Let's make this totally concrete for a second. Let's say we sit down, we tally up those 5 bare necessities we just discussed, and they come out to exactly $4,000 a month. That $4,000 is now our baseline survival number for this example. It represents the absolute minimum amount of cash required to keep a roof over your head and food on the table for 30 solid days.
And this brilliantly illustrates what the final math actually looks like. If you want a 3-month emergency fund, you simply multiply that $4,000 baseline by 3, making your target $12,000. For a 6-month fund, obviously, it's $24,000. Now, look, I know staring at a target of 12 or 24 grand can seem incredibly daunting. It sounds like an impossible mountain to climb when you're first starting out, but please take a breath. You absolutely do not have to save this overnight. Building this safety net slowly, month by month, paycheck by paycheck, is completely normal. In fact, it's exactly how everyone else does it.
Okay, so now that we know the math, let's shift gears to strategy and logistics in Section 4, where to store it. Because once you actually start gathering this cash, where should you park it?
When deciding where to put this money, you have to constantly remember its purpose. Look, the stock market is absolutely fantastic for long-term wealth building, but it is a terrible place for an emergency fund. I mean, just imagine losing your job and desperately needing cash, only to find the stock market just crashed, forcing you to sell your investments at a massive loss just to buy groceries. Yeah, we definitely do not want that. Instead, you want a high-yield savings account. In these accounts, your money stays completely safe from market dips. It earns a solid guaranteed interest rate literally just for sitting there, and most importantly, it is fully liquid, meaning it is available to you immediately the exact second you need it. An emergency fund isn't meant to maximize returns. It's meant to guarantee your absolute peace of mind without any risk whatsoever.
Now, if you're sitting there feeling like you can't possibly save thousands of dollars right away, please do not get discouraged. Let's move along and see how this builds, because here is exactly how you build this from scratch. Step 1 is simply to focus on saving your first $500 or $1,000. Don't even worry about the big target yet. Just hitting that initial milestone will prevent a huge percentage of everyday financial emergencies from becoming total disasters. Then, step 2 is to automate the whole process. Just automatically transfer $25, $50, or $100 from every single paycheck directly into that separate high-yield savings account. Seriously, treat it like a bill you have to pay to your future self. Out of sight, out of mind. Small, consistent, automated deposits add up much, much faster than you realize.
All right, now for our final section, rules for your fund. You've built the fund, but now you actually need the discipline to know exactly when to use it and, crucially, when to leave it alone.
So let's firmly clarify the boundaries of what actually constitutes an emergency. Unexpected job loss, sudden medical bills, an urgent roof leak, or a major car transmission failure. Those are true emergencies. This is exactly what the fund is for. Now, what is not an emergency? Needing to do last-minute holiday shopping, booking a really fun weekend getaway with friends, or suddenly feeling the overwhelming urge to upgrade your perfectly fine phone just because a newer model came out in a slightly cooler color. If an expense is expected or if it is entirely optional, it absolutely under no circumstances should come from your emergency savings.
I want to read a truly powerful analogy straight from our source material because it drives this point home perfectly. Think of it like replacing the batteries in a smoke detector after they've been used. The protection only works if it's always ready. That is such a brilliant way to look at it, isn't it? When life throws a curveball and you are forced to actually use your emergency fund, your immediate priority, the very next month, must be to rebuild it. Life is wildly unpredictable, and unfortunately, emergencies rarely only happen once. The protection only works if you keep those batteries charged and ready to go. Which brings us to a final crucial question I want to leave you with today. Will your future self thank you when life doesn't go according to plan? Because the bottom line is really this. An emergency fund isn't about becoming fabulously wealthy. It's about buying yourself time, radically reducing your daily anxiety, and giving yourself actual, tangible choices when life throws massive challenges your way. Whether your specific goal is 3 months, 6 months, or a full year, the absolute most important step you can take is simply to get started today. Set up the account, make that first automated $25 transfer, and take your power back. When the unexpected happens, and it will, you'll be ready.
Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this gives you the exact blueprint you need to build your own financial fortress. But the real question is, what's the very first step you're going to take right now?